I would like to call the meeting, school board meeting to order. And Ms. Geltmaker, please note that all board members are present except Bill Hawkins. And I invite you to stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have several board salutes tonight. Dr. Hartledge.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Tonight, we would like to recognize several different students. We'll first start with the American and adults, our employees, American Welding Society Outstanding Educator. The board would like to salute Christopher Tungate from Jeffersonville High School, who was awarded the American Welding Society Outstanding Educator. This award, established by the American Welding Society, is given as a means of recognizing educators whose teaching activities are considered to have advanced the knowledge of welding of the undergraduate or postgraduate students in their respective engineering institutions. Mr. Tungate was nominated by an individual that is on this committee. We would like to thank Mr. Tungate for his continued work educating and training students and staying connected with the workforce and what is needed in this industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, the board would like to salute the Charlestown High and Jeffersonville High bowling teams. Freshman Joshua Nelson advanced to regional, and the Super 16 won regional and both advanced to compete in the Jasper sectionals. Thank you to Coach Wesley Wiles and Coach Corey Ingram. The Charlestown High team members are seniors Braden Murphy and Gavin Mattingly, juniors Ethan Ingram and Jack Van, and freshmen Joshua Nelson and Chandler Bird. Forward, please.
I have to ask you at the highest average. I went bowling Saturday night. I want to know if I can compete. What's your average? Well,
I can answer that.
And for Jeffersonville High School, after competing in regionals this year, Brett Cooper and Jackson Crewer advanced to the Kokomo semi-state in the singles event. Jackson Crewer advanced to the state finals and Anderson in the singles event. Thank you to Coach Kelly Cooper. The Jeffersonville High team members are Kyle Tincher, Hunter Flowers, Shanae Clark, Brett Cooper, and Jackson Crewer. Please come forward.
Yeah, we beat those guys in the regular season.
there you go, runners up. Good job, runners up. All right.
Our final board salute tonight is for the Martin Luther King poster contest and scholarship winners. On Saturday, January 18th, Ivy Tech hosted the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Committee's annual breakfast. Numerous greater other Clark County students were recognized for receiving the committee scholarship and awards. The board would like to salute Lindsay Vessels from Jeffersonville High School, who was selected to receive a scholarship. And our poster winners are, in middle school, the first place winner, Sergio Luan Rios, an 8th grader from River Valley Middle School. Second place winner, Elizabeth Goodwin, from 8th grade. She's an 8th grader at River Valley Middle School. An honorable mention went to Andrew Seifert, 8th grade, River Valley Middle School. Our elementary winners were first place winner, Savannah Vallos, 3rd grade, from Riverside Elementary. Our second place winner, Joseph Simpson, 4th grader from New Washington Elementary School. And our honorable mention, Cameron Neal, 5th grade from Spring Hill Elementary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, if you were here for board salutes and you would like to leave this time, you may do so. Or you can stay. It's fun stuff.
Grocery store, I'd stay.
Yeah, there you go.
Drawing for a car. Matchbox. First item is approval of the agenda. Board, may I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Then we have approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. That would include the regular meeting, the work session, and the public hearing meeting minutes. Board, may I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Any questions or comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the previous meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. All right, we have no public comments on agenda items. So we now have the solar energy presentation by Chad Schenk.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
All right. I think you're in store for a great presentation. Myself and John and actually Dale Pop, Jeffersonville Township trustee, heard this presentation back on December 13th. It was Friday the 13th, but it was a lucky presentation, I think, for us to be there. So we've invited them to come down. I'm just going to do a little bio of the two presenters that we're going to have. Dr. Deborah Howe is a retired superintendent for Tri Creek School Corporation in 2018, having served 42 years in education. She's been a teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent of rural, suburban, and metropolitan and urban districts. And in 2018, she was honored with the Governor's Circle of Coordinator Award for service to her community and the Lauren A. Burke Award through ISBA. Also with her, we had Mark Van Dongeren. He was born and raised in the Netherlands, and in 1982, he was over to the United States to pursue a master's degree in international business at the University of South Carolina. Mark continued his international career working for a Fortune 500 company, Avery Dennison, and he's assigned increasingly higher level positions working in the U.S., Asia, and Europe. In 2008, Mark spearheaded an initiative at Avery Dennison to enter into the photovoltaic market, and that's why he's here today to present. He's the co-owner of Midwest Wind and Solar LLC, which delivers engineering, procurement, construction, and service solutions to customers looking to realize the vast benefits of solar. I think you had the presentation, and we're going to load that up. Mark, Dr. Howell. Thank you.
Chad, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I guess I should stand close to this. So thanks for that introduction, and thank you, boards and everybody, for attending, for giving us an opportunity to share a couple of things about solar. Really, I think the goal of the 20 minutes that we're looking to take here in terms of our presentation is, for us to provide information about what solar can do for you and share a real life experience in terms of what Tri Creek has gone through in terms of solar. And with that, stop us at any time. I mean, this is really meant in terms of informing you. I'm really not here actually to sell. I'm really here to provide information about what solar is, and for that matter, what solar is not. So to some extent, it is a Solar 101 overview, and stop us at any stage. If we can go to the next slide, do I do that here, or is that? Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, a bit of an introduction of who we are. We're going to look at, how we look at different sites, what solar can bring in terms of benefits, and typically what the process of solar entails. So we can go to the next slide. I am not going to go line by line. In terms of we as a company, as Chad said, my co-owner Kevin Moore started the company 12 years ago. We sometimes feel like we have dinosaurs in the solar country. Solar has been around for 12 years in the Midwest. It's actually been a technology that was invented back in the 60s. So in that respect, solar is far from a new technology. It just had to go through, the scale and the cost reductions in order to really pencil and compete with other energy technologies, if you will. In terms of what we do, we engineer, we design solar solutions. We have our own in-house staff that engineers and designs, but we also have our own in-house crew that ultimately constructs projects, and for that matter, as Chad mentioned in the introduction, can service solar projects. Our main office is in Northwest Indiana. However, we have people on the ground in Michigan as well as in Illinois, and we basically span the entire Midwest. And one of the solar developers we recently worked with in Michigan has now asked us to do a project in Long Island, New York. So we're starting to step out of our current geographic area, following our customers. Part of the reason that we're here and why we were at the study group back in December is that ever since meeting Dr. Howell and the folks at Tri Creek, we've quite honestly really enjoyed working with schools. Because with schools, and it's a really good segue into this slide, it is much more than just economics. With schools, and Dr. Howell will talk about in one of the slides, we can do so much more in terms of curriculum, in terms of really making it hands-on, what renewables can truly do for the community from a sustainability point of view, and long term. So there's some real neat aspects besides the dollars and cents, if you will. That speaks to the left side of the slide here. Yes, the main reasons why schools and other customers that we deal with are interested in solar. It is because of saving utility bill cost and taking some ownership. So quite often you don't really have a choice. You go to your utility, you get a rate, and that's it. But with solar, obviously, you now finally have some leverage and can hedge your energy costs. Because part of that is with utility, and particularly at the school, you don't know what your utility bill will be 5 years from now. You have no idea what the inflation will be. With solar, you know what it's going to produce because of local battery data. You know what it's going to produce 5 years, 10 years from now. So that way you start to really hedge your energy cost in a massive way. But before we go into that, and Chad was really kind, taking me to 5-6 sites in the past hour and a half. There's a lot of low-hanging fruits that we want to do before we even consider a solar project. Energy savings, whether it's LED, which can typically take 15 to 20% off your electricity load. Energy efficient HVAC. There's all kinds of things, and I know that you started a process with ESG that I was, we always ask those questions before we even start looking at your utility bill. I said, wait, before we build too big of a solar project, let's think about how you can actually reduce your loads, so you never, bring in too much solar production, so to speak. So those are really important things before we engage in any type of project. Anything I'm missing there, or something? No? Let's go to the next slide then. Next couple of slides is really getting into that, solar 101. In this slide, you basically, at the bottom, you have that picture of, in this case, a roof array. Later in the presentation, we have a couple of slides both on the ground as well as on roofs. Like this school district, a lot of schools have flat roofs. Certainly in this district, we have a couple of shingled roofs. Both are perfectly fine for solar. And where available, we also can go on the ground. So all those options are available. Basically, at the end of the day, what we do is we make sure that we have a solar panel that has solar crystalline cells that basically converts sunlight into electrons, and we tie that then to your main electrical room to, rather than buying your energy from the IMC or from Duke in this case, now you're actually self-providing in terms of your energy production. I'll get to that later in the presentation in terms of, will you still be with the utility? Yes, you will still be with the utility in terms of the grid, and no, so we're not going to cut the cord with the utility 99% of the cases for really important reasons that I get to later in the presentation. The other part that I want to address right here, which technology are we talking about? No, we're not talking about battery and storage and any of that type of stuff. Basically, the utility will act as your storage in case you have excess production in terms of the solar array. It will be pushed onto the grid, so you will not be back onto battery storage. Battery storage, in a nutshell, is still too expensive to really think about in projects like these. Next couple of slides, I'm going to try to speed up a little bit, but there's a lot of conventional wisdoms about solar. I mean, are you serious? Really, solar? You know how much sunlight we have here? We don't want to be a guinea pig, and all those things. Dr. Howe can attest to that solar works. I'll probably turn it over to you. You can maybe because Tri Creek was such a special story when we met first 5 years ago in terms of how the project got started, how you had a gradual approach, a pilot program, and all the way. Yeah, let's get into that a little bit, because I think that sets the stage for that. It's real. It's not a myth.
It is. Okay, I retired in 2018, but we started looking at the solar project in 2014. And it was brought to us by a group of 8th grade students because alternative energy is one of the units in 8th grade science. And they had been looking at the middle school electric bills, and they were appalled, as you can imagine. And so they looked at a variety of alternative energies that could possibly help, and that money could be used elsewhere in the district. They made several of those groups, project-based learning is what we were doing, and so several of those collaborative groups gave a presentation to the school board. We thought they were done extremely well, and so we decided we better look into this. And we were one of the first ones in the state, so solar energy was not really known at that particular time, so it would take a lot of time to investigate. Now we decided that we would have an alternative energy committee that was with community members, government people, our utility provider, and also Midwest Wind and Solar came and sat on that committee with us, and we learned a lot over the next 2 years. We put up a pilot program at the middle school, and because it was part of the educational program, students helped construct the racking, and then they would do experiments with the solar. That was successful, so we ended up getting a $100,000 grant from the Indiana Energy Commission, and we expanded that, and we were seeing positive results. So at that particular point, we decided to expand this throughout the district. And our students then that spearheaded this became our spokespeople. And we really did have the 3 E's that we were looking at: education, economics, and environment. And these students were able to tie everything in, and parents and community people were just amazed at how these students could speak, how calm they were, how professional they were. And they actually then, when we did our grand opening, spoke in front of legislators and everyone. And it was really quite unique and quite
Inspiring.
inspiring, you're right, it was. We decided to put solar on all three of our elementary and our middle school. Those were all ground mounts. We also put it on the roof of our newly constructed advanced manufacturing facility. At the same time, we were starting to put LED lights on. And so the LED lights, we figured would be about 20%. So we put 80% off the grid is what we were trying to do with the solar. Our elementary schools, about for 9 months of the year, are paying $25 a month in utility fees. And that's really your hookup. Our advanced manufacturing building has never paid more than $25 a month. So in terms of economics, this was a win. We thought we would be saving around $250,000 a year. We're actually saving a little over $350,000 a year. We are a rural community, and so referendums were not going to be successful for us. But what was successful was solar, because if you go look at any agricultural buildings, you might see solar on top of those buildings. And so we had zero pushback when we were going through the 3 E's. They tended to understand farmers really care about the environment, and parents in the community really wanted their students to have an understanding of the businesses and the careers of the future. So it was a win-win all the way around for us.
I have a question.
Yes?
Maybe I didn't hear you right. You said that your utility bills were $25.
Yes, that's a hookup fee.
Hookup fee.
That's basically just say on the grid.
Yeah,
Stay on the grid.
yeah.
Other than that, that's all you was paying.
Well, not for 9 months out of the year, yes, that was it. So we saw a drastic reduction in the amount of money we were paying to the utility provider. That's how we were saving around $350,000 a year. And when, to finance this, we had a bond that was going off, and we did not want to raise taxes, but we wanted to keep everything the same, so we chose to purchase everything through our bond. And so when it got up, we immediately saw that savings in our operational fund. And so the year after I left, because after I got everything done, I retired, they were actually able to hire more teachers, give raises, do a lot of things that, you know, I was hoping that they were able to do.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be a crazy question. But with the panels, is there a cleaning process, or you just that? I mean, I'm thinking of all these birds flying over. I mean, is that a fact?
So we're up in Lake County, so we have a lot of seagulls
Right.
that come around, and we really do not have.
So there's no cleaning that you have
There's
to
no
do?
cleaning, and when the snow, it melts when the
Melts.
sun comes out, and it just kind of slides off.
So your building would dictate how many panels you would need? Like going down 64 to Evansville, you can look and see this big field of solar panels for this, I guess, company. Do you put them on the roof or on the ground?
Correct, and the ones that are on the ground are pretty much out where everybody can see. In fact, we put a big sign that on ours that said, this is our solar field, economics, education, and environment. And we had all our partners that are listed there that helped put this in, because we're very proud of the fact that we're being good stewards for our community.
So it was actually a real good question about the cleaning, because in certain desert-like conditions, you see, for instance, the solar field out west, those, particularly the larger scale, where there's a huge investor that invested in this project, they will clean those panels. But here in the Midwest, the rain will take care of those things.
Well, one reason I brought that up is at our church we had a light, and they said go check and make sure a bird didn't poop on it. And sure enough, it did. So we went to clean it off, the lights would come on. So I didn't know if that, was the same principle or anything that you had to worry about. Cloudy conditions, you don't have to worry about that. It's the
No.
rays.
Really, the kid, there's what is that panel that we have in the entryway of the school that they can watch to see what the electricity that we're saving on a daily basis. And even in cloudy weather, we're saving some.
Yeah, funny story on that. We once had a residential customer that was so proud of the fact that with a full moon, he still produced energy in the middle of the night. So even the strength of that moon triggered something with the solar panels to create energy. So yeah, even on cloudy days, you see, of course, a big drop in production, but there is production. And the kiosk that Dr. Hall mentioned, I wanted to point out, connect a couple of dots there. So this big solar array, whether it's on the roof, on the ground, is actually, we set up communications. So there's a monitoring system. So on your phone or on a computer, you have real-time information in terms of what the array is producing. And obviously you'll see a big difference on July 5th compared to December 24th. So you see that production in real data, and it comes out in kilowatt hours, it comes out in carbon footprint improvements, etc. That data at schools we enjoy to, with a kiosk up in the lobby, so everybody can see in terms of what you've been doing. So not only is it available on your computer here, but it's also available for the entire community to see.
Okay, you mean for your return on, once, nothing's cheap, so once you put something in, cost, what was your return, and how long did it take you before you actually start saving? Because you have to buy it first.
Yeah.
So it's a bond, all right? So if we were really going to take that money and pay it right back, it would have taken us around 12 years. So we put a bond out, but we put it out over 20 years, and we're paying that back through debt service. And so the money that we were saving, immediately we saw in operational funds, and there was no increase to the taxes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about is that we were really emphatic about the fact that we wanted everything to be connected to education, because that is, after all, our business. And they put in a educational panel that wasn't attached to the solar array, but it was out in front of it, and it was fenced off, so kids could go out there and do experiments on that without feeling they were going to get electrocuted or anything. And they also then, because we wrote education into our bid. And so we were a bit fortunate that they had put in solar kits and science educational kits that would go through grades 1 through 5 at each of our schools. So it really became a piece of our program. Project Lead the Way has environmental energy as part of their curriculum. So we began to have curriculum, kindergarten all the way up in terms of alternative energy.
Thank you.
I think I wanted to make one more point about this discussion, the cleaning of panels, the snow, all of that. Every proposal that we create is based on local weather data. That means that all the data that we project in terms of how much production you're going to get off your solar array is based on what happens here, not what happens in Lake County. That accounts for a certain amount of snow days that we've seen over the past 25 years. NASA has mapped the country like that, and that allows us to use it in our software to really model that. And there's a big difference in terms of even some of your schools have flat roofs. On a flat roof, we'll have an array at about 5 to 10 degree tilt. That is far less optimal than going on the ground where we have 25 to 30 degree tilt. We get much better energy harvest and more kilowatt hours that are produced there. So, all of that is kept in mind, and that's why it was so valuable looking at some of your sites. Even one of the middle schools with the metal roof had a very nice pitch, which is much better than a flat roof. So all of that is taken into consideration in terms of determining what is the best way for you to get kilowatt hours and save what you're paying to do.
So basically, in our area versus Lake County, which is predominantly cloudy a lot, correct?
Yeah.
When I was living up there, it was hard to see the sun. Let me just say
It's more
that.
cloudy and colder up there right now than it is down here.
Right. So our production would basically be a lot better than what you're getting up there.
Yep. Now again, you don't have as much, you're not as rural, you don't have as much open space to go on the ground, so that's a negative that you have.
Right.
You have some areas where we can go on the ground, so again, it's going to depend a little bit on, where do you want to go, how big do you want to go, ground versus roof, all those factors come into play. But yeah, I mean, on sites, you know, the elementary schools that Dr. Howell talks about, you know, 300 students, I believe, in some of those elementary schools.
301, 500 plus into the other two.
Yeah. So we create enough kilowatt hours that we don't have to buy those kilowatt hours from the utility anymore. And in that case, yeah, all you need is the utility to service you. And that's how you end up with $24. Yeah. And that's, again, that's a function of knowing the utility bills, tailoring the size of the system to optimize for savings. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the
I
next
think
slide.
teachers would like that, savings.
That speaks to, you know, you cannot see it in that map, but, you know, the point being, in this slide, what we're trying to point out is that, yeah, you may think that we don't have enough sun here, but if you not only compare to the rest of the country, but if you compare to Germany, which is, you know, until a couple of years ago was the largest solar country in the world, we actually have more sunlight than Germany. So, yeah, you know, fortunately, we still, at the end of the day, can create enough kilowatt hours because of sufficient sunlight.
It's the weather too. In areas where it gets too hot, it lowers the production
True.
of
Yep.
electricity. So we have cooler weather, so we can have it over a longer period of time.
Yep.
Got me, didn't
This speaks to the prior points. I'm not going to address that. A, we account for snow days, and B, now don't take the snow off the panels, don't clean it off, Chad, no worries. It's all accounted for. 10 years ago, solar was too expensive. It couldn't compete with what you're paying Duke and REMC. Today it can. Pricing has come down substantially to the point that we still have wind in our name, Midwest Wind and Solar. We don't do any wind anymore. Wind is very cost effective and can compete at the utility scale. That's why I see these large wind farms. But anything smaller, solar will outcompete any wind project. So yeah, and you now see utilities, Duke themselves are investing, and you see RMCs investing in solar farms. The reason being is that it's not only the capital investment makes it worth competing, but also for service point of view. Next slide, please.
I can say something too. When you have a windmill and everything goes around, you get kind of like a strobe effect in the community. And ours, solar panels are in subdivisions. And we didn't have pushback at all with the solar panels there. And those folks who were concerned, we just put some trees up behind it so that it would take the view out for their houses, and there was nothing.
Can bypass that slide. This again, it's no longer new technology, and maybe pointedly for schools. I mean, over the last 3 years, ever since our journey started with Triangle Creek, we over the last 3 years have done about 35 to 40 school facilities here in the Midwest. So yeah, it's far from new technology, it's proven technology. To that point, actually, very large investment organizations, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, all those large institutions are now investing in solar. So I'll get to that in a moment, but it speaks to, you know, those companies are all about not taking risk, and they put their capital because they see that the technology is worth investing in. I want to spend sufficient time on this slide because this is really, I would say, a foundation why solar works in the United States. Net metering is a concept that you can actually push energy onto the grid and get a credit for it from the utility. That's really important, particularly with schools, because in the summer months, when your load comes down because your school is not in operation, those, of course, in reverse, are the biggest day for solar. So on those days, it could very well be, and there's many days, that you're producing so much energy that you don't have the load to use that energy. All that energy is going to be pushed out onto the grid, whether it's with the RMC or with you, and they will give you credit for it. So that back and forth allows you to say, okay, yeah, in those winter months, when we don't want to pay you, we've actually built up this huge credit that we can use, and that's how you get to the $24 that we talked about earlier. Is you almost use the utility as a storage provider for you. Rather than your own storage, your battery, actually the utility becomes your storage. That back and forth is what we call net metering. You know, at certain times you need to tap into that credit, sometimes you push it out and you get an additional credit. That's currently at a 1-to-1 ratio with Duke. We're yet to do some research on really what the RMC here locally will offer. But with Duke, that 1-to-1 ratio is in place until 2032, unless they hit a certain ratio, a certain capacity factor of installed renewables on the grid. That could happen anytime. That's not public information that is available. We ran into that with NIPSCO about a year ago up in northern Indiana. They said we hit the cap and no longer is net metering available at a 1-to-1 ratio. But for now, we do that is available. So I just want to be transparent that I cannot tell you when it's going to end, other than 2032 until it reaches the cap. Unfortunately, that's the best data that the utilities provide at this stage.
So you can store kilowatt hours. Do they have an expiration date?
Great question. Yes, they chew up after a year. So we always, you know, when we look at you, we do, you know, I'll show that in the next steps in terms of our process. We always look at your utility bills to determine, okay, on this facility, what is your load? You know, we're going to design a system that is typically between 80 and 90% of what you're using, and we make sure that we, at the end of the 12 months, that we chew up in a way that there's no Christmas gifts for the utility.
How, I mean, I know this might be getting ahead, I'm just curious. The battery technology is not what it needs to be, I think at this point. What do you foresee in 5 years if somebody would do a solar project? I mean, I know it's asking a lot, you know, just.
It's obviously a great question that we're tracking intensely, and it's almost like for now 5 years we've been saying, well, battery storage is going to go the same trajectory as where photovoltaic, where solar went, meaning that given another 3 to 5 years, it's going to come to a price point and scale that it's going to pencil with projects. But it's been slow going, to be honest. You know, the technology continues to evolve and it's getting better, but it still needs incentives or very high rates, such as an OI, to really pencil. So in Hawaii, you see a storage market. You see in California, because there's incentives just for battery storage to get it off the ground. But in most other states, the price point is just not there yet. And yeah, maybe 3 to 5 years. And also depending on which state is going to put what incentives in place. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, let's move on to the next slide. This is an example that I wanted to share in terms of, you know, what we do is we, you know, take your electricity bills, we look at your particular facility in terms of, okay, you know, we can grow on the ground here, or we can go on the roof there. Let's optimize what that will look like in terms of the solar array, in this case on the ground. We highlight then on the top left, you know, so many panels, what is the size of that system, and then at the bottom, that pie chart just highlights, okay, how much is solar doing in terms of percentage of your utility bill versus what you can still expect to buy from the utility. So, you know, our goal is by looking at your utility bills, bringing as much data to you to say, okay, you know, this is what the data is in terms of what solar can do, in terms of production, in terms of energy offset and savings in your return on investment. Next slide, please. I think this is a slide similar, in this case a roof, so we lay it out on a roof, and again, the same equation there. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I've already talked about the curriculum development, so unless you have any questions, we'll on.
We touched on this a little bit as well, but certainly this is something that, you know, you can rely on us to help with, you know, any zoning, permitting, all that paperwork, and sometimes we help, you know, a building department writing an ordinance for solar. So, you know, all that paperwork, both with, from a permitting point of view, ordinance and zoning point of view, but also with the utility in terms of interconnection applications, net metering applications, all those things, that is all in scope for us. So at the end of the day, you know, we don't expect you to become an expert on that. That is something that you can expect only like us to handle for you.
And in fact, they did have to write the legislation for Lake County. And when we went to get the zoning permit, it took us all of 3 seconds for them to approve it because it was following the policy. When it came to our town, that was another issue. But they were right there. It took us 3 months to get through. So as you're going through all of this, it's really good to get out ahead and talk with your town people and your county folks to make sure that the policy is there and that you're meeting all requirements.
Next slide. Yeah, a couple of things on financing, and Dr. Hall mentioned already a particular route that Tri Creek followed. There's obviously different options here. Besides the bond scenario, I mentioned ESG. We've actually recently finished a project with ESG up in Michigan City. We did a police station, a fire station, a community center. And again, that was a larger energy savings program, guaranteed energy savings type of scenario. So it was a different scenario compared to the bond, and pros and cons to each. At the end of the day, for us, as I mentioned to Chad earlier today, it's what you prefer. We're open to both scenarios. So in that regards, we are really agnostic in terms of what we can support you with. I wanted to highlight a power purchase agreement real quickly. It's something that is not common here in the state of Indiana. We see it in other states, but we also see that some customers of ours are actually exploring this now in Indiana as well. Basically, a power purchase agreement means that an investor pays for the entire system. They lock your energy rate in for the long haul, quite often up to 20 years, so we do have energy pricing security for the long haul. You are going to see a reduction, of course, from what you're paying today. You know what you're going to get, you don't have to fund the project, and they will service it. The biggest downside sides are twofold, I would say. A, you're not going to realize all the savings that Tri Creek is enjoying today is really because they deploy their own capital, so the biggest rewards there. And two is that I would say that here in the state of Indiana, I would consider this scenario still a little bit hairy. It's not like the legislative process is well groomed for us to do a PPA here. It's something that I know other players have done, and we're open to explore this. So, if you're willing to try something different, we can explore this. Next slide. I think I can get it close to the next slide. I just wanted to quickly highlight, how do we work? At the end of the day, what we hope to do with these type of sessions is bring you information. We understand that this is not your run-of-the-mill type of project, so we want to bring as much data as we can. That means that, yeah, we do initial site visits, do some preliminary layouts, do a detailed study of your rate structure with your utilities to understand what solar can save on your bill versus what it cannot. There are line items on your bill that solar will not address, particularly demand charges, peak demand charges. So we leave that off. And we come back with these preliminary proposals. Once there is some significant interest, we can come back and do a board presentation. We can help with the financing, and at the end of the day, if there is an agreement / contract, again, we offer a turnkey solution. So your interconnection, working with roofers to keep the warranty in place, doing the structural engineering, the civil engineering, the entire permit process. We have our own crew that travels with us, and we offer the training and curriculum support as discussed earlier. So that in a nutshell is really the process, the turnkey solution. I think the next couple of slides are a few more slides, maybe with examples, or is it just one?
In fact, this is one of my elementary schools that you see here. And the little area right on the top that's closest to the school, that's the educational area.
Separately fenced off, lower voltage, lower amperage, so it's always safe environment for the teachers.
And if you were going up 41, you would see that array from the roof.
The prior one, the prior site, if you don't mind going back, is in Bowling Group, just outside of Chicago. They don't have ground space there, so we did 5 elementary schools all on the roof. So those are examples of, you know, the school does not have any real estate all the ground.
41 up Frontier House.
There you go, because I'm thinking, what's he talking about 41 on the Terrell? Okay, I got you 63, I used to have this area.
I'm glad we have this example. I think we visited one of the schools where Chad said, well, there's some parking lot area. Michigan City, we did 7 schools, and one of those schools had ample parking lot that they never use it. They said, you know, this would be the best place for us, so we, you know, we just put steel into the ground and started and building the area in this parking lot.
I have a question. On this one, let me see what, but was that a new school design with the flat roofs with the solar panels?
I wish we would have saved a lot of money by working with the electrician, with the roofer, having the conduits in place, etc. So now this is an older school facility where we basically just did work with the roofer understanding, you know, is there any leaks, any issues that we've had with this roof? I think they had to move a couple of vents, so we usually bring the roofer onto our project team to make sure that, again, we're doing things blessed by the roofer, keeping that warranty intact. But now this facility with Valley View and Bowling Group was an older facility. All of them were.
Are those things pretty heavy, those panels, or you walking down all the way, panels all the way down? Is that real heavy stuff, or is it?
Yeah, even I don't go to the gym to lift weights and stuff. I can carry one panel by myself. Yeah. They're about 21 square feet.
Mark, just quickly, what's the one of those panels, the photovoltaic cells, do they fatigue?
I'm so glad that you asked the question because I completely omitted to talk about warranty and life of these panels and all that type of stuff. So solar panels have a component warranty of 10 to 12 years. When I say component, glass, typical question that we pay, you know, we play baseball. Well, the glass actually is 2-inch hail resistant. So you spend some time in Hammond. We did a Hammond facility, and once a year we got a customer saying, oh, we got a few bullets in the glass, and shockingly the panels are still producing energy. So they're very robust, but there's a 10-year, 10 to 12-year, depending on the brand, product warranty. More importantly, there's a 25-year production guarantee. So let's say that currently most of the panels that we use are 400 watts. That means that 25 years from now, you'll get guaranteed output of that panel of 80% of the original output. That's a declining scale calculated by the manufacturer. That means that after 25 years it's 80%, after 5 years it's roughly a 4% degradation. That's a degradation of the crystalline silicon cells in the solar panels. That is again guaranteed. And if they're, you know, through the monitoring, we as an installer, not only you and your kiosk get the data, we get alerts when the system is not working properly, not in specification. So if we see that there's a malfunction such as that blue hole in Hammond, then, you know, we know that somewhere in that array we need to check it out, and maybe, you know, please go back to the panel manufacturer and say, okay, this is no longer within specification, we swap it out and get a new panel. So that's the 25-year guarantee for that. The inverters that we use typically have a 10-year product warranty as well.
Okay.
So your school insurance will cover all of this, and we did not have to pay additional for our school insurance, and it was a good thing because we did have a tornado come through and take out most of one of our arrays, and they were there just like that. And it was
It's almost like the tornado.
after the tornado.
Awesome.
Questions?
Other questions?
Thank you. You'll travel a long way. I appreciate it.
All right, very welcome. Now, for us, it's, you know, we said inspiring. I mean, we're doing a project now in northern Illinois, just close to the Wisconsin border. And again, it is just so nice to see the curriculum development people, the teachers, seeing what it can bring to the students. Never mind, of course, the vast savings that are in for the district. So it's been really rewarding with working with these type of off-takers.
Well, in the chat, when we went to see you, we could tell that you're doing what you love to do. And I, appreciate that, and I appreciate your honesty about all of it too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
And I shared this with the board in terms of our utility costs, current utility costs on average at each school, when you look at some of the sites that, based on doing them on the ground in terms of the solar, just if you did something here at the admin building in Utica, you're talking about over $105,000 in savings in utility costs. Just the new wash schools alone, if you could take them off the grid, it would be well over $200,000 a year in utility cost savings. Which, and I just looked at those places where we have the land to potentially do that, such as Parkwood, and River Valley, and Riverside.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the fund monitoring report. Dr. Dykle?
Also, I just want you to remember that at Franklin Square, we do have solar voltaic bringing in a small little presentation area. We have $15,000 in the budget for core construction, so the children will be able to look at solar being produced by the school. And the school is going to be solar ready, right?
It is, the new roof system is solar ready.
So it'll be solar ready. All you have to do is find the money to put it up, and do that much farther ahead to save the money. So just wanted to let you know that.
Thanks.
So anyway, on the education fund, our big state tuition support check always comes in around the 15th of the month, and it's $5.7 million. So we actually collected $5.8 million. Then we also had our PAW, tax anticipation warrant, which came in January 2nd. So you see we collected $10.8 million for the month, and we spent 7.2. So our cash balance at the end of January is 3.6. I'm projecting about 1.1 million until we see all the retirees, the new hires, and everything else. That'll be fluctuating back and forth. So debt service, small income came in for 23,000. We had a GO bond payment in January of 160,000. So you can see we're projecting 4.2 million as the ending cash balance on that fund. On the pension bond, we had no income because that only comes in June and December for that debt service. And we had a bond payment of 630,000. So we're looking at an ending cash balance of just under $500,000. The operational fund, we get monthly local option income tax for $79,409. That should be constant throughout all 12 months. So we collected $102,000, and we spent $2.9 million for the month. So we're projecting about $696,000 right now as the ending cash balance of December. And the rainy day fund, no income, no expenditures, and we're still sitting at just under $2.4 million. And don't forget, we still have the loan that goes from the self-insurance fund back to the rainy day fund of $1,950,000. So, any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Dahl. Next, we have a consent agenda. Board, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Clayton. Second.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Walton. Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Gifts to buildings.
So for this month, or did Paul put it in back? I miss Renee. No, I'm just kidding. We have the Education Foundation coming through for band and sports programs. We have a Hughes group donated to dance classes for students' invitation to dance. And Jeffersonville FOP, the 8th grade Washington DC trip. Total is $9,693.82. I move that we accept these gifts to building as presented.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bockwalter. Any questions, comments, discussion?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I want to thank you and Teresa for donating the microwaves. Also, a good friend of mine was on there for donating to this chess team, Glenn Sweat, and of course, always partners with us in our educational endeavors is our Jeffersonville FOP. A big donation there, so I just wanted to give a shout out to those folks.
And Katie's didn't make this month, but she donated a microwave as well.
I was just
So,
saying.
yeah, it amazes me, just the various people in our community who donate and just to all kinds of things that we need in the individual schools. So, appreciate it so much. Thank you, FOP.
Pass that on for us if you would. Sir.
Okay. All those in favor of approving gifts buildings, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Action items, we have the authorization to bid the football grandstand replacement at Charlestown and Jeffersonville High Schools.
Yes, I am recommending that the board approve the approval of the bid process for the football grandstand replacements at Charlestown High School and Jeffersonville High School. As you remember, back in October, the board passed the bonds to do this project at both those schools. The architects are ready to put that out to bid, so we're asking the board to allow us to go ahead and put those out to bid.
Thank you, Mr. Loeffler. Board, may I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the recommendation from the superintendent to approve the bid for the football grandstand replacement at Charlestown and Jeffersonville.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Any questions, comments?
Look at those footers.
I'm not sitting there. All those in favor of approving the bid process for the football grandstand replacement at Charlestown and Jeff, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Next, we have awarding the bleachers at New Washington Middle High. Dr. Dickel.
Yes, at the October 1st, 2019 board meeting, authorization was given to bond for the year one projects as presented by Mr. Loeffler. The administration is utilizing the state procurement system and would like to award the New Washington Middle High School bleacher project to Towerline Enterprises from Fisherville, Kentucky, at their price of $183,939. The money for this project will come from the 2019 bond issue, and $450,000 was budgeted for this project, in addition to replacing the gym sound system, fixing the gym floor, and purchasing radios, which we haven't done any of that yet. So we now will have enough money to finish the rest of these projects, and getting it approved tonight, we will get it installed during the summer, so it'll be ready. So we're asking permission to proceed with Tubaline or Tobaline. I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Toba.
Toba. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dickel. Board, may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve the award for the bleacher project at New Washington Middle High to Telefine Enterprises at their bid of $183,939.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Dr. Clayton. Any questions, comments?
I have a question. As in carry over to the last, now we're not gonna have any drainage problems on any of those, water standing any place on any of those. You know, Jeff High School, we had the water standing, in that area. Is all this gonna help change all that stuff? Or
Sure.
okay.
If it's not fixed this go around, when we eventually do the locker room project, then it would be. That's one of the geotechnical surveying that was done as part of the turf. It's one of the things that we're looking at is, because of the square footage of the turf, they have to get that water.
Bill, you had me nervous when you were talking water, and I'm talking about outside the bleachers.
This will be indoors.
I missed out on Jeff High School. I was thinking something else and I didn't get it in, that question in. But anyway, thank you.
I thought you knew something more than I did.
No, we're fine if you work. I did the slide that Jeff went in there.
And also, the estimate we had, or our budget was $450,000. The cost on this was because it went through the state procurement. And so I think Mr. Lochner's going to ride that out as long as they'll let him be a...
Yeah, we expected the cost to be around $250,000 for the bleachers, and for it to come in at that cost is fortunate.
And the nice thing about using the state bid, you don't have to go and come and ask for legal advertisements and go for the bids and publish it and everything else. It's already done for you. And all you do is you just go to the website and say, this is what we want, give me your price, and it's done. So it speeds up things quickly, especially when you want to get it done during the summer.
Mark, I bet you get all those free one-week gym memberships too.
I'm looking all the time.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor of wearing the bleachers at New Washington Middle High to Tovine, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Next, we have a partnership with U of L for trauma therapy.
Yes, good evening, Board. Greater Clark County Schools, specifically Corbin Porter Education Center, will partner with University of Louisville and Family Art Counseling Services to provide trauma-focused counseling and therapy to students in need. These services will be provided as part of a study through University of Louisville to determine if trauma-focused counseling and therapy group counseling and education are effective in reducing trauma symptoms in children and youth who have experienced one or more traumatic events. Parent permission will be obtained for students participating in the counseling services. These services will be 100% funded through an outside grant through the University of Louisville. This is a great opportunity afforded to Greater Clark County students.
Thank you. Board, do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the partnership, approve the partnership with U of L for trauma therapy.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Any questions or comments?
I just want to thank Brooke and Ms. Gilkey for clarifying some things with it. That made this a lot easier. That's all.
I just want to say I'm really excited. The CDITS is a evidence-based practice through the National Traumatic Child Stress Network. And I'm excited that our students are going to have access to those services. So oftentimes they're not. And we should see a reduction in behaviors and other things that's in the school environment as a result of the therapy. So I'm really excited about it.
It's a great opportunity. We've partnered with U of L and some of our elementary buildings as well in similar projects, and we've seen a great result. And it's been very educational for our teachers as well because they learn along with the programs as well as provide support to our students.
Yeah. The trauma-informed care aspect is so crucial. Just the understanding of how trauma affects our kids.
Absolutely.
I like too, they're going to try to get data and use the data to continue. So that would be good for future monies.
Thank you, Kim.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the partnership with the U of L for trauma therapy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, the agreement for special needs independent consultant with Mary Ellen Hilbert.
Yes, Mary Ellen Hilbert will provide contracted services as a speech pathologist and educational diagnostician for the remainder of the 2019-20 school year at an hourly rate of $52. Mary Ellen will complete evaluation components for preschool students in the absence of a full-time psychologist who is on an approved medical leave. The cost will be paid from federal funds.
Thank you. Board, may I have a motion? Board, wake up.
Yeah. Move to
I did the
approve.
last one.
Move to approve the agreement with the consultant, Mary Ellen Hilton.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? This is just someone different who is coming in while someone's on leave.
Correct.
Right.
Substitute kind of
Right,
situation.
okay. Any other questions or comments, board? Okay. All those in favor of the agreement for special needs independent consultant with Mary Ellen Hilbert, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. And final action item is the Codalicious contract.
Yes, board. Earlier in this year, we were so excited to be approved for a STEM grant through the state of Indiana, and this is one of those programs that was included within that grant, and this is a contract for Codalicious. It provides courses that are designed to be educator-led, education standards compliant, and include full semester project-based curriculum to engage every learning style. The contract with Codalicious will be paid for with STEM grant money awarded to us by the state and will help our elementary schools meet the computer science standards requirements. Programming will include computer science foundations. This hands-on project-based course is designed to excite students about computer science and develop foundational skills in programming. The course uses Scratch Junior to introduce students to block coding and to develop computational thinking skills. Students will learn how to be respectful and be responsible digital citizens, explore STEM careers, as well as develop problem-solving skills. Another aspect is the introduction to computational thinking with Scratch. Educators will introduce students to Scratch, the block coding language, to develop an understanding of foundational principles in computer science, computational thinking, and analytical skills. Discussions and project-based activities encompass safe internet behavior, STEM careers, and real-world computer science vocabulary. A final component of this is the introduction to web development with JavaScript. Students will use JavaScript, HTML, and computer science standards to gain familiarity with web-based structure and front-end web design best practices. Educators will lead discussions that explore various STEM careers and project-based activities that encourage students' interest in web development.
Thank you.
Madam President, I move that we approve the Codalicious contract as submitted by Superintendent.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I just wanted to say Codalicious. You all jumped the gun. I mean,
Go on, say it.
I love that, Codalicious.
Sounds like a candidate.
I know, I was just sort of dreaming that Codalicious. But anyway, I do have a comment that I am so excited about this. Some of the things that these kids, our elementary kids are going to be learning and doing, I mean, that was high school material.
Still is.
It still is, but I mean, these kids are going to be so ahead of the game. And I'm just very
Absolutely.
excited.
And this is certainly a skill for jobs of the future. When we think about right now, we think of our assembly line jobs, and 5 to 10 years from now, these are jobs that don't yet exist, and they will be replaced by robots. And someone needs to be able to program those robots and understand that piece. So it's really, it's certainly part of our career pathways, but we're starting early on, and it's exposing our students to skills, and will support and build their talents to be successful.
Dr. Hartledge, is this the same thing that I sit in at the state where that these kids will be able to actually go to program?
Mm-hmm.
My
Yes.
goodness, that's sort of scary. You know, you leave home and your kids, your elementary kids are changing your locks. Yeah, other buying things.
Those engineers that we work with at Crane, they were saying those high school kids, they kept pushing job on them. They were, those high school kids were kind of looking at like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And here we're doing something for elementary that's going to kind of scaffold them to that
Right.
whole project. So that's awesome. I just, you know.
I greatly appreciate the respectful and responsible digital citizenship piece of the curriculum. Yes.
We can't do enough of that.
No, I agree.
Codelicious to the rest.
Delicious. Sounds like another book, along with delicious and
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the Codelicious contract, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, there are no public comments on non-agenda items, so we come to board comments. Ms. Gilkey?
I didn't comment on it at our last meeting, but just I wanted to point out some of our Martin Luther King Jr. poster contest posters that we have here. And I don't believe the winning ones are out here, but they were amazing.
Very.
I mean, like awe-inspiring, like, wow, our kids did that, and they were amazing. They were beautiful. And it is Black History Month, so just wanted to give a shout out for, you know, the things that we're doing to recognize some of the diversity in our school system.
Yes, on Saturday, I was having breakfast at a little cafe in Jeffersonville with 5 other friends. And Coach, our Jeff High basketball coach was there, sitting by himself. I went back and talked to him a little bit, went back to my table, and 3 of our Jeff High basketball players walked in the door. And what did they do? They walked right up to our table, shook our hands, and introduced themselves. And the people, I acted like I wasn't surprised, but the people sitting at my table went, wow, what polite young men. Then the rest of the team proceeded to trickle in with rides. Every single kid introduced themselves to us and shook our hands. And as they left, they came over and said, you know, the breakfast was good and the hope yours was good. And one of them, his grandson, this is funny. I said, oh, you're Dr. Clayton's grandson. He said, I'm Caleb. So I was just so proud of our students. They're great ambassadors. And I know the girls are the same. And I know New Washington and Charlestown have the same type of students out there that are great ambassadors for our school.
Did you pick up anybody's tag?
It was already picked up.
All right. I just want to thank you, Chad, for having the solar presentation and doing that. And always thank you all for giving your reports and things that are right. Appreciate it.
Dr. Clayton?
Just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Congratulations to all those that had winning events, and for even the kids that came up short, they're still winners.
Hey, that was cute.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. How many people we have watching? 2.
Bill Hawkins won.
Oh, you don't know? It's anonymous. Oh, okay.
I also want to thank Chad for bringing the presenters. I think that's, it's very interesting, and, there's a lot to be said for taking a harder look at, what solar has to offer in terms of the form of operational savings and helping our budget, and anything we can do to save money that we, in return, can provide more resources to the classroom and the teachers it's definitely worthwhile to look at. So I appreciate the presentation.
Yes, thanks, Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Laughlin. April? All right. Board, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam President, I move that we adjourn.
Okay. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?